Welcome again to another action figure review, and we're gonna review two figures because that's what I have promised you guys. The Build-A-Figure is complete, and of course the figure in question is Marvel's Strong Guy, who, based off the attire that he's seen wearing, and he's more famously known for his role in X Factor, and it was the second team of X Factor, as a matter of fact. The first team of X Factor had, well, first and foremost, there is no packaging on this figure, of course, because the packaging he came in pieces in other figures, so there's no packaging for him. Hence, I'm just gonna jump into his history and also gonna try out his articulation. So, first team of X Factor was, of course, the original 5 X-Men members: Cyclops, Jean Grey, Angel, Beast, and Iceman. And they formed X Factor as a splinter group, because at the time I think there was this big confusion over Magneto also being the good guy and joining the X-Men. There was, in a way, they just wrote those characters out just to expand the team, just to make their roles seem more important. And eventually they folded back into the original X-Men. Magneto ended up becoming a bad guy again, and the X-Men had to reform because Magneto had his acolytes, and of course that started out the great Jim Lee run of X-Men from the 90s. That's the one that everyone remembers the most. Where does this guy fit in? Well, this guy, he did appear in New Mutants first and foremost. At the time, he was a bodyguard for this mutant singer called Lila Cheney, and he was only known as Guido because that's his first name. He is Guido Carosella from the suburbs of New York. Yes, so he, of course, is Italian American, and it goes well again with the whole international flavor I keep telling you that the X-Men bring. This guy, he was chosen to be a member of the second X-Force squad, which you could see them be, other members, you could see them be depicted right there on top, behind Optimus Prime, and that's Polaris, Havoc. I think it was also Quicksilver, Wolfsbane, and Jamie Madrox's multiple man. So I think that was the first, along with Strong Guy. That was the first incarnation of that X Factor team, and this is the uniform that he's wearing. Nice blue and gold deco. And Strong Guy was created by Chris Claremont, who of course created a lot of great concepts for the X-Men. He was one of their head writers for a long period of time, and of course he helped pen, I guess, possibly the most famous X-Men story, the Dark Phoenix saga. So famous they tried doing it twice in theaters, and both times it hasn't been executed that well, in my opinion. But enough about that. Strong Guy, Guido Carosella, my bad, Carosella. He got the nickname. He got the nickname because that X Factor group was kind of like this government-sponsored X-Men group, so it was high profile. You know, it's like they had a press conference and this and that with Havoc and Polaris, and of course him, and of course he couldn't call himself Guido anymore, even though that was the name he went by as the bodyguard for Lila Cheney. So what other name could he think of? He's like, well, I'm the Strong Guy. So that's pretty much how his moniker stuck. He is indeed the Strong Guy. Now, his odd body shape is best attributed to when he discovered his mutant powers. See, Strong Guy actually has the power to, like many X-Men, to absorb energy, or to absorb kind of like force. The thing about him is that he needs to expel that force as quick as possible, because the longer it stays in his body, the more it morphs his body. It gives him great pain, And as a matter of fact, he actually walks around in constant pain, and he makes up for it by making wisecracks, by being kind of like the funny guy of the group. And the reason why he has like a bigger upper body is because as a teenager, he was getting bullied and a bus accidentally hit him, and it kind of like morphed his body upwards, and he was never able to expel that energy from that bus crash, and so that's why he has a stronger upper body ever since that day. He was just never able to expel that energy, and his body was morphed, and that's how his powers work. And of course, his powers are also in strength. He could equal an unraged Hulk in strength, along with like the Thing and the Juggernaut, those other powerful characters of the Marvel universe. Besides that, though, I'd say he has one of the better personalities. Ooh, that's doesn't look that well. It's kind of a downer, but that's pretty bad damage. But yeah, and I guess if you want me to recommend some essential reading of Strong Guy and his character, I would recommend not the 90s X Factors. Even though if you guys want to go for that, if you guys are big fans of X-Men in the 90s, go read that book. Go read that X Factor team. But I think a much better run would be the third X Factor group, X Factor Investigations, which was in the early to mid 2000s, and that's a much better team in my opinion. It's just film noir. It's a bunch of mysteries. It's a bunch of it's more tightly well written. It's because in the 90s, it's like the 90s was more about like attitude and visual and style and what have you. And much better stories were written for X Factor Investigations, which was a team that was formed by Madrox the Multiple Man, and Strong Guy was one of the members as well. And there's just this great film noir style given to that. Strong Guy was one of the few to survive the decimation, so he still had his powers after Scarlet Witch wished all the mutant powers away. And he also, if I remember correctly, he was last seen during Secret Empire, so that's when Captain America was a Nazi. I don't know if you guys ever read that story. It's a good story, but there's a lot of plot holes in it, in my honest opinion. But yeah, Strong Guy was actually shown in Secret Empire, kind of living in this undiscovered country of mutants that was hiding from the forces of Hydra that were slowly taking over the world. It's a great face sculpt, by the way. I can't stress enough how great of a face sculpt that is. Ooh, that's very creepy. Maybe that's too close. Whoa. But yeah, other than that, let's check on the articulation for this guy. His head does not look that much up. Down, it's okay, not that good on around his head, but then again, just look how tiny it is compared to his upper body. And I think this collar also gets in the way. Of course, his shoulder rotates nicely. It's I'm not gonna lie though, I'm kind of disappointed in that scruff mark. I don't know how he got it. I don't know if it came with the figure. Single jointed elbows, and it's kind of like a weird hinge. It's usually not hinged like this, but it's single jointed, so he qualifies for being a female figure. Of course, no ab crunch. Instead, it's like a diaphragm, kind of like a female figure. Not that I'm trying to make that comparison. And double jointed knees, thigh rotation. Can't really do the splits. Does he have any ankle? He has ankle pivot, ankle rocker, but nothing here. So it's pretty much rotation here at the thighs and nothing at the ankle. But he does have the pivot right here. So that's about it for him articulation wise. He could be a bit better articulation wise, but I mean, it's a Build-A-Figure. He is huge, and I think that's the one best feature of this figure is the fact that he's just so humongous. And I don't regret getting him. It's just, it reminds me so much of that 90s figure I used to own. And yeah, so let's go on to the next figure and let's finish this review off. Thank you. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it that my first MCU figure that I reviewed on this channel would be Rhodey, War Machine. And yes, this is the War Machine from Avengers Endgame, I believe. And I'll go into further detail as to why I think that's the one. But of course, it's a Marvel's War Machine, and this is of course a War Machine from Avengers Endgame. When the fate of humankind is at stake, let me see if I could quickly zoom in much better. There it is. When the fate of humankind is at stake, there is no mission too great for U.S. military officer James Rhodey Rhodes, aka the War Machine. And yeah, that's him most definitely. I'm trying to not get that glare on, but I'm having trouble. But yeah, this is War Machine as he was depicted in Avengers Endgame. I don't think it's the Infinity War version, even though it's kind of definitely it's not the comic book version. This is definitely the MCU War Machine, and the packaging is pretty nice. This is from the Build-A-Figure Hulk wave, and that's of course Professor Hulk, and that's the reason why I think it is. I think that's the reason why I think it is the Endgame War Machine. Just the fact that Professor Hulk is there, and of course, there's other figures in the line: Rescue, Shuri, Rock Python, Union Jack, Beta Ray Bill. Of course, 3 were from the movies, 3 aren't from the movies. And and this Loki, of course, and that's definitely not from the movies. So that's not Tom Hiddleston. And yeah, I don't know. I honestly do want to go into the comic history of the character, but I don't think I don't want to be honest with you. I would rather just go by the fact that it's the movie version. I'd rather just go and say the movie history of the character, and down the line, I'm sure I'll go through a War Machine figure, comic version of War Machine, and that's when I actually give you the comic history on this character. Let's just go through like the movie history of him. Of course, he appeared in Iron Man 1. He was played by Terrence Howard at that time. And here's a fun fact for you guys. That War Machine was, Terrence Howard was paid more than Robert Downey Jr. for that movie. And I think that he was going to get a drastic pay cut for the sequel, and that's why he dropped out, and that's why they had to get Don Cheadle. So there's your fun fact for War Machine at the time. Let's go on and open this figure up, and I'll continue on with like his character history. So there is War Machine right there. I always found it funny how in the first Iron Man movie, Terrence Howard's character, he sees an extra Iron Man suit, and he looks at it and he's all like, oh, like contemplating like putting it on himself, and he's like, nah, next time. And of course there was no next time for Terrence Howard, so he got replaced by Don Cheadle. And Don Cheadle, I feel, has played the role well, but I'm not gonna lie, I don't know. He's done a great job at the role, but I just feel like Terrence Howard was a better Rhodey. I know that's controversial, and I know he just seemingly fit the role a lot better. I don't know. Iron Man 1 just always had a better tone than the sequels, even though I for one am a big fan of Iron Man 3, and I've defended it. And Iron Man 2 is okay. It's okay if you look at it as a world building type of movie. Yeah, other than that, there is no extra head sculpt. He did come with like these gun pieces, which I feel, do they attach here? Yeah, because that's like a machine gun. What is this? This has like where would this attached? I'm trying to figure out exactly where these components would fit on the figure. Probably should have looked at it first before I just started. Or maybe this, or okay, this pops. This has to pop here, and I guess that's how you get the rotation That's how he has this big missile laser right here. And I guess these are just carried by him in his hands or something. Or okay, I get it now. They attach right here. They attach right here. There, 1 and 2. But yeah, of course, he doesn't have that sleek design that Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark's Iron Man has, and the War Machine armor was always kind of more militarized. But this one serves a double purpose, of course, because in Captain America Civil War, if I remember correctly, it was Vision shot a beam with the Mind Stone, knocked Rhodey off the air as he was flying. Rhodey ended up landing pretty nasty, and he was incapacitated from his lower body. And is that why I don't know if this is life imitating art or maybe this figure's just stuck, but dang, are these knee joints they're really stuck, and I'm no lie, I'm like kind of a bit, there. I guess it's just a simple matter of like wearing them in and out. And no worries, that was one of my Transformers I found. Transformers reviews coming soon, by the way. Okay, yeah, there it pops on. And maybe it has something to do with it being in the packaging. I mean, this was a figure that was probably out for a wave that was out, I want to say 2 years. It's going to be 2 years already since this wave came out. So the reason I got him is because I didn't have a War Machine at all. I did not have a War Machine, and it's, I hate to sound cynical, but it's very fitting that he has limited articulation on the legs, because that's how Rhodey was for a good chunk of the movies post Civil War. So yeah, I know I'm pretty mean, but great. I do like these unique parts. You know, it's not the typical double jointed hinges. You know, I mean, it's not your typical like the way they look, but it matches well. It matches well for Rhodey, and of course with he started recovering. He started feeling more of his lower body, but he still needs help. And of course, that's what this War Machine armor is for, to help him. He is out there in space as a hero, doing missions, doing Avengers missions after the snap, helping out each way he can, because that's what a hero does, you know. And the figure's great. I do not understand why there was no head sculpt, like human head sculpt. For some odd reason, it's like if Hasbro expects you to buy like these I'm not gonna lie, they're kind of overpriced. These overpriced 2-packs in order for you to actually get like a human head sculpt. You know, if you buy the actual figure at retail, it's like nope. You almost never get a human head sculpt, and if you do get a human head sculpt, they're pretty ghastly. Just look at how they're barely getting Steve Rogers likeness to Chris Evans. Before, like when they first launched, like I remember the Winter Soldier Infinity Wave series, it was like, oh man, that did not look like Chris Evans at all. So at least they're making slow improvements, but if you want like a accurate head sculpt, you gotta plunk down like, you know, the premium price for those 2-packs, like the Marvel 10th anniversary, the Marvel MCU 10th anniversary 2-packs. But yeah, figure's pretty cool. Like I said, it's just a bit tight on certain joints. Kind of like, and relatable to Strong Guy, this guy has like a single jointed elbow, but it's a lot of range into him. He could go like that. There is rotation at the shoulders. He can't look up that far, but he could definitely look down a lot, and that's very appreciative. Once again, a diaphragm, no real ab crunch, and this part gets in the way of him actually bending down, so that's an issue that needs to be resolved. And yeah, and will we see War Machine in future MCU movies. I expect them to be honest with you. Maybe I don't think they're gonna get. It would, even though it would be nice. It would be nice if they brought back like all the characters from like the Netflix universe. But I do honestly feel that eventually we will get a Thunderbolts movie, and I think rather than it be Luke Cage, it might be War Machine. That's gonna be like the mentor to the reformed villains, a la Luke Cage and the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts run post the Civil War storyline in comics. Other than that, this figure is great. Like I said before, I didn't have a War Machine figure. I now have one. I am seriously lacking in my MCU figures. I want to start collecting a lot more of them. It's just I kind of took a pause because I noticed that they were developing better sculpts for them each and every time, and I would be getting stuck with the more abysmal sculpts, I guess. They weren't abysmal, but at the time they were the best that was out, and then they just got something better out there. And now it's like okay, I don't think they're gonna get any better than this unless I go towards the Japanese market, and even then those figures are usually undersized, unfortunately. And yeah, so I mean, Hasbro knocked it out of the park scope wise. I just like all these little details that they added to the figure. Articulation wise, he could be better. I don't know what's going on with the. Yeah, see, it's very limited on the rotation. It's very limited on the rotation, but then again, like I said, that's how Rhodey's character was in the last few movies. But yeah, it's a great figure. It's a great addition to my MCU box, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you again. We will now go to the conclusion. Overall, both figures were great. I'm not gonna front though, as great as the War Machine figure was, the MCU War Machine, I really like the Strong Guy figure. Maybe it's the nostalgia factor in play. Maybe it was the fact that I had to buy 6 other figures to actually build this guy. Or maybe it's just the fact that even though this guy's huge, this guy I feel has much better articulation than this guy. Almost feels like this guy's a statue despite looking so cool. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. I feel I'm gonna take a little short break from reviewing Marvel Legends. It's time to review more figures from other lines. I'm definitely looking at the Transformers, and I guess that's why Optimus in the background of that. And until then, to all are one. I'm kidding. Thanks again for watching this video, and 2020. Let's make 2021 ours, people. That's it. That's all I gotta say. And take care. As always, I love you all. Peace and love. And that is it. I am out.